torture me. I half joked. No, now please be silent, he said, tying the last strip around my waist, and behind the chair, like an airline seat belt. Are we going flying, Sock? I asked nervously. In a manner of speaking, yes, he said, kneeling in front of me, taking my head in his hands and placing his thumbs against the upper edges of my eye sockets. My teeth chattered. I had an excruciating urge to urinate. But in another second, I had forgotten all. Colored lights flashed. I thought I heard his voice, but couldn't quite make it out. It was too far away. We were walking down a corridor swathed in a blue fog. My feet moved, but I couldn't feel ground. Gigantic trees surrounded us. They became buildings. The buildings became boulders, and we ascended a steep canyon that became the edge of a sheer cliff. The fog had cleared. The air was freezing. Green clouds stretched below us for miles, meeting an orange sky on the horizon. I was shaking. I tried to say something to Socrates, but my voice came out muffled. My shaking grew uncontrollable. Sock put his hand on my belly. It was very warm, and had a wondrously calming effect. I relaxed and he took my arm firmly, tightening his grip, and hurtled forward, off the edge of the world, pulling me with him. Without warning the clouds disappeared, and we were hanging from the rafters of an indoor stadium, swinging precariously like two drunken spiders high above the floor. "Oops," said Sock. "Slight miscalculation. What the hell?" I yelled, struggling for a better handhold. I swung myself up and over, and lay panting on a beam, twining my arms and legs around it. Socrates had already perched himself lightly on the beam in front of me. I noticed that he handled himself well for an old man. "Hey, look," I pointed. "It's a gymnastics meet, Socrates. You're nuts." "I'm nuts," he laughed quietly. "Look who's sitting on the beam next to me. How are we going to get down?" "Same way we got up, of course." "How did we get up here?" He scratched his head. "I'm not precisely sure. I had hoped for a front row seat. I guess they were sold out." I began to laugh shrilly. This whole thing was too ridiculous. C clapped a hand over my mouth. "SHHHH." He removed his hand. "That was a mistake." "Ha ha 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 ha." I laughed loudly, before he muffled me again. I calmed down, but felt giddy and started giggling. He whispered at me harshly. "This journey is real, more real than the waking dreams of your usual life. Pay attention." By this time the scene below had indeed caught my attention. The audience, from this height, coalesced into a multicolored array of dots, a shimmering, rippling, pointillist painting. I caught sight of a raised platform in the middle of the arena with a familiar bright blue square of floor exercise mat, surrounded by various gymnastic apparatus. My stomach rumbled in response. I experienced my usual pre-competition nervousness. Socrates reached into a small knapsack, where had that come from, and handed me a pair of binoculars, just as a female performer walked out onto the floor. I focused my binoculars on the lone gymnast and saw she was from the Soviet Union. So, we were attending an international exhibition somewhere. As she walked over to the uneven bays, I realized that I could hear her talking to herself. The acoustics in here, I thought, must be fantastic. But then I saw that her lips weren't moving. I moved the lenses quickly to the audience, and heard the roar of many voices. Yet they were just sitting quietly. Then it came to me. Somehow, I was reading their minds. I turned the glasses back to the woman gymnast. In spite of the language barrier, I could understand her thoughts. "Be strong, ready." I saw a preview of her routine as she ran through it mentally. Then I focused on a man in the audience, a guy in a white sports shirt in the midst of a sexual fantasy about one of the East German contestants. Another man, apparently a coach, was engrossed with the woman about to perform. A woman in the audience watched her too, thinking, "Beautiful girl. Had a bad fall last year, hope she does a good job." I noticed that I was not receiving words, but feeling concepts, sometimes quiet or muffled, sometimes loud and clear. That was how I could understand Russian, German, or whatever. I noticed something else. When the Soviet gymnast was doing her routine, her mind was quiet. When she finished and returned to her chair, her mind started up again. It was the same for the East German gymnast on the rings. and the American on the horizontal bar. Furthermore, the best performers had the quietest minds during their moment of truth. One East German fellow was distracted by a noise, while he swung through handstand after handstand on the parallel bars. Sensed his mind drawn to the noise, he thought, what, as he muffed his final somersault to handstand. A telepathic wire, I peeked into the minds of the audience. I'm hungry, got to catch an 11 o'clock plane, or the Düsseldorf plans are shot, I am hungry. But as soon as the performer was in mid-flight, the minds of the audience calmed too. For the first time, I realized why I love gymnastics so. It gave me a blessed respite from my noisy mind. When I was swinging and somersaulting, nothing else mattered. When my body was active, my mind rested in the moments of silence. The mental noise from the audience was getting annoying, like a stereo playing too loud. I lowered my glasses, and let them hang. But I had neglected to fasten the strap around my neck, and I almost fell off the rafter trying to grab them as they plummeted straight for the floor exercise mat, and a woman performer directly below. "Sock," I whispered in alarm. He sat placidly. I looked down to see the damage, but the binoculars had disappeared. Socrates grinned. "Things work under a slightly different set of laws when you travel with me." He disappeared and I was tumbling through space, not downward but upward. I had a vague sense of walking backwards from the edge of a cliff, down a canyon, then into a mist, like a character in a crazy movie in reverse. Socrates was wiping my face with a wet cloth. Still strapped to the chair, I slumped. "Well," he said, "isn't travel broadening?" "You can say that again." How about unstrapping me?" "Not just yet," he replied, reaching again for my head. I mouthed, "No, wait," just before the lights went out and a howling wind arose, carrying me off into space and time. I became the wind, yet with eyes and ears. And I saw, and heard far and wide. I blew past the east coast of India near the Bay of Bengal, past a scrub woman busy with her tasks. In Hong Kong, I whirled around a seller of fine fabric bargaining loudly with a shopper. I raced through the streets of Sao Paulo, drying the sweat of German tourists playing volleyball in the hot tropical sun. I left no country untouched. I thundered through China and Mongolia, and across the vast, rich land of the Soviet Union. I gusted through valleys and alpine meadows of Austria, sliced cold through the fjords of Norway. I tossed up litter on the Rue Pigalle in Paris. One moment I was a twister, ripping across Texas. The next, I was a gentle breeze, caressing the hair of a young girl contemplating suicide in Canton, Ohio. I experienced every emotion, heard every cry of anguish and every peal of laughter. Every human circumstance was open to me. I felt it all, and I understood. The world was people with minds, whirling faster than any wind, in search of distraction and escape from the predicament of change, the dilemma of life and death, seeking purpose, security, enjoyment, trying to make sense of the mystery. Everyone everywhere lived a confused, bitter search. Reality never matched their dreams. Happiness was just around the corner, a corner they never turned. And the source of it all was the human mind. Socrates was removing the cloth strips which had bound me. Sunlight streaked through the windows of the garage into my eyes.